recording.
Next December.
Have it up on YouTube. Maybe by tomorrow or tonight.
Barack Obama's nominee for the post of CIA Director, John Brennan, has a long history of associations with radical Islamists, notably the Muslim Brotherhood. In February of 2010, Brennan spoke at an Islamic Society of North America-sponsored event, coddling Muslims as Barack Obama had often said.
I knew without moving.
Yeah, that's better.
Not how it is often misrepresented, but for what it is. How it is practiced every day by well over 1 billion Muslims worldwide. A faith of peace and tolerance and great diversity.
Islamic Society of North America, or ISNA, was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial, found to be funneling millions of dollars to the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist group Hamas. Brennan also has deep ties to another Muslim Brotherhood front group, Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, also an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation case. CARE has had literally hundreds of secret meetings with the Obama administration, no doubt at Brennan's bequest. In October of 2011, the group Muslim Advocates wrote a letter signed by 57 Muslim organizations, whose main signatories were CARE and ISNA, demanding the Obama administration remove quote-unquote bigoted language found in FBI training materials, terms like jihad and Islamist, the rationale being that these terms offended Muslims.
It is important to note that out of concern for the FBI's outreach program and the State Department and the White House for reaching out and bringing in people who courts have said have supported terrorism, and these people are being brought in the military, we've said brought inside the wire, in this case brought inside the State Department, brought inside the White House on a regular basis, brought inside the Justice Department. They've got the FBI to actually go through and cull material that includes words like jihad, words like Islamist. And in fact, and I really do wish, Mr. Speaker, that our director of the FBI would be as concerned about this law as he is about laws that don't exist, but his concern about offending people who have been supporting terrorism that has been killing innocent people around the world.
Brennan responded to the letter personally and not only purged FBI training materials, but implemented a mandatory retraining program for FBI agents, U.S. Army officers, and all federal, state, and local law enforcement who had been subjected to quote-unquote bias training. Those who refused to toe the politically correct line, like war hero and Army trainer Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Dooley, were summarily blacklisted. Instead of purging...
Okay, so documents were purged, re-education training to all of our military counterintelligence people. There are 6 advisors to the administration currently. All of these guys are tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. 43 entirely in the whole administration are working. Back up a second. The second guy on the left, Muhammad Ali Diari, was just promoted to a senior fellow in the Department of Homeland Security. This guy here, Imam Mohammed Baji, is going to be at the Wilkes Museum in Beechwood on April 23rd. He runs the Islamic Society of North America. He's coming for an interfaith dialogue. Now, there's no chance that they're not until next week when I inform him, the rabbi there, of who he is and who the Islamic Society of North America is. So we have the DHS, the fox guarding the hen house. They changed the guidelines in there. They fired the trainers, and they're teaching the DHS and law enforcement to not use moderate Muslims. And that's really defined, a moderate Muslim, as ones who are against Sharia law as trainers. In that video, Sudi Jasser was one of the first individuals to speak. He would be considered a moderate Muslim. He was in the Navy, he's an MD, he's very patriotic. He's one of the ones saying they're trying to bring Sharia to the country. Okay? So they would not hire him to be used in any form of the government, which he tried to do. So the result of this guideline training change, which happened in 2010, you have sheriffs and law enforcement getting totally confused as what's going on. Back about the same time when this happened, this is when Christians were identified as possible terrorist groups, returning veterans, that sort of thing. We had an incident that happened, a woman who contacted me who lives in Stowe, Ohio. She gave me permission to tell them about this case, but doesn't want me to use her name. Her husband sent out a book provided to him by the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulo's group, and it's called Sharia Law, the Radical Islam's Threat to the Constitution. You can get this book on Amazon, you can get it directly from them, and it clearly goes simply how Sharia law is not compatible with our Constitution. So this gentleman takes it upon himself, his own expense, sends it out to every sheriff in the state of Ohio. A sheriff from Lima, Ohio, contacted the Department of Homeland Security and said, we have somebody that's anti-government. So, I saw the letter. He was listed as a person of interest, and went back and forth, got the city involved. The city of Stowe ended up apologizing to the family and giving them $22,000 cash settlement. But the woman was not happy enough with that. She gave me the documents, I gave to our national headquarters, and when I did, and talked to some of the trainers that were working with us, the 4 trainers that were fired by the FBI, by the Obama administration, they told me that this stuff is happening everywhere around the country.
Amen.
Okay, the purge, you mentioned that last video. In 2012, hundreds of FBI files, training manuals, and presentations were removed and purged within 6 weeks. Now, we know the federal government doesn't do anything efficiently in 6 weeks. All the trainers were fired. The reason we get so much information in our organization is because we're talking to all these people who were into business for years. The Fort Hood shooting, the first one. Major Nadal Hassan had business cards with the letters SOA on, and he shouted Allahu Akbar. SOA stood for Soldier of Allah. He was outraged by our refusal to accept the law of Allah, Sharia, to be the supreme law of the land. He had actually given a presentation to his higher-ups a couple of years before that shooting saying that Muslims shouldn't be in the military and that this was going to happen. They ignored him. The administration continues to this day, even though they've sentenced him to death, they will refuse to call it workplace violence. And because of that, and so as to not inflame the Muslim world, okay, they are costing all the survivors, okay, not only benefits, but purple stars, okay, and commendations. The administration continues to classify this as workplace violence. After the shootings, then Army General George Casey Jr. said that as bad as the deaths of 13 soldiers were, it would be an even greater tragedy if our diversity becomes a casualty. He said this, I saw this, I almost fell out of my chair. He said this to George Stephanopoulos on ABC News. Okay, CARE and the IRS. We now know who CARE is. They happen to get immediate approval after years of improper filing just prior to the 2012 elections. They weren't filling their forms out, and all of a sudden they got, when Tea Party groups were getting, IRS approval, being delayed, rejected, whatever, they got it in a matter of a couple months, just in time for fundraising season for the election. We now have Al Jazeera, English. Okay, it took over for Current TV, Al Gore sold. It's owned by the government of Qatar. The government of Qatar is the financial arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. By the way, that's listed in their plan, TV stations. Mosques. We have now approaching 2,200 mosques in the country. In the year 2000, we had 800. Grade schools. Our kids are under assault. This happened in Texas. Glenn Beck exposed this. It's called C-scope, or one of the parts of C-scope. Kids are dressing in burqas. This was stopped, but there's going to be more in a minute I'll get to. Olmsted Falls down here, oh, go back. Olmsted Falls, 30 Days as a Muslim. The video was shown to 6th or 7th graders. I can't remember what year they were. But this happened last several years. And one of our first activities as a chapter started last March when we responded to a call, or an email for help from a mother in the Olmsted Falls school system whose son came home upset after seeing this video, 30 Days as a Muslim. Okay, this video is not part of the curriculum. It's just something the teacher decided to bring in on her own. It's starring a Christian man from West Virginia. He's 30 years old. The film was made by Morgan Spurlock. If you don't know who that is, he's a friend of Michael Moore's, and he's the guy who made the Super Size Me film about if you go to McDonald's for a month, how much weight you're going to gain. Okay, so he's very liberal, and he puts together this film. 30-year-old gentleman from West Virginia leaves his one-year-old daughter and his wife and moves up to Dearborn and spends a month with a Muslim family. Well, the film starts out with how he's totally unsure, and then he goes out and gets the wardrobe, and then he starts to grow the beard, go to the Islamic Center, read the Quran, and the film depicts, Christians and Jews as sad people, the Muslims are happy people. It's total propaganda. And from my perspective, okay, is if it's, besides being a Christian, which is, I don't agree with the Islamic component of it all, here's the part that's a problem. One of the experts in the film, or so-called experts, was the leader of the Michigan chapter of CARE. So now we have our 7th graders listening to an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial, and they're being exposed to their propaganda. So the mother was very concerned. She can't get any help. She reaches out to us. She had even talked to the state school board on this, their local school board. Nobody was going to pull this video on them. We got a number of people to get involved, supported her at the school board meeting, and I can tell you that that was a waste of time at that point, because we had put together a presentation about CARE, about the Holy Land Foundation trial, about how they were unindicted co-conspirators, in addition to the religious component of it, but how, because of that alone, what should happen, or at least the outcome that we were seeking, was that the school board members should say, well, maybe I have a doubt about this. Maybe we should pull this film. Remember, it's not part of the curriculum, it's just something they brought in on their own. And at the very least, they should have said, we should check into this and see if our concerns were valid. They didn't do it at all. They sat there, they were on their smartphones or Blackberries, whatever. Their body language, they weren't even paying attention to us. Deb Goldstein, my partner, standing at the table, her husband's an attorney. He spoke for us on our behalf for 15 minutes. They just ignored everything, all the work we gave them, and they had their mind made up. And the school superintendent actually had the nerve to say, well, we realize that there are all kinds of inconsistencies with this video, but we trust that the teacher has the good sense to stop the film and explain those inconsistencies to the kids. That's not what was happening at all. So they wouldn't pull the film. Finally, the mom still was not happy. Deb and Mike know the people at the Thomas More Law Center up in Michigan, and we presented the case to them. They took it up pro bono and sent a threatening letter to the school system, and then magically the video has disappeared. It will not be shown again. But it shouldn't even have come to that. And it should not even come to, it shouldn't even come to us. It should have been, that mom should have had enough other moms that had the courage to go to that school board and say, what the hell are you doing here? Amen. That's pretty much what should have happened. It should never have gotten that far. So now it's going to get better.
Hello, Rebecca Hannity. World history textbook in the Florida public school system is raising serious concerns over its alleged Islamic bias. Now, the textbook has been used in 9th grade advanced placement classes in Brevard County schools for the past 3 years. It is now under review by the school board. Let's take a look inside this book. Now, first, as you can see on the screen, the book has a major chapter on Islam titled Muslim Civilizations. By the way, keep in mind, it has 0 chapters on Christianity or Judaism. The chapter goes on to teach about the Prophet Muhammad and how he became God's messenger, even describes jihad as a, quote, holy war to defend Islam. Here now with the book in hand and more details on the controversy, Fox News Radio's Todd Starnes.
This is it, Sean. 36 pages in this textbook dedicated to Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Not one chapter about Christianity, not one positive mention about Jesus. They say that some people believe he may be the Savior, but they declare definitively that Muhammad is God's messenger. Public school.
You said they're defining jihad, interpreting as a holy war to defend Islam against the victims.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, through the entire chapter, Sean, Islam is defended. They talk about how wonderful Islam is to women. You think that they were having Victoria's Secret stores over there, by reading this.
Women who can't drive or go to school.
That's right. Or women who are stoned, who've been brutally assaulted and murdered. None of that is mentioned here in this book.
The women under Sharia that need 4 male eyewitnesses to prove rape.
Look, it goes so far as to even redefine history, reconstruct history. They talk about the Crusades. Whenever the Christians do something, they call it a massacre. But whenever the Muslims do something, they call it an occupation.
Yeah, well, big difference. Why, if it's a world history book, and they're going to deal with the sensitive topic of religions, why not comparative religions?
It's a great question, and unfortunately, the publisher of this book is not giving us the answer to that question. I called Pearson publishers. They wouldn't talk to us. They gave us a prepared statement. They're defending this. They say it's fair and balanced. But look, school board members are telling me in Brevard County that it's not fair and balanced. They've had a chance to read this, and they have big problems with it. But this is bigger than just Brevard County. Sean, when I did my original story, we started getting emails from all over the country, parents saying they had similar issues, and we understand that a study's been done by the Citizens for National Security, and they tell me that at least 80 textbooks that are in use right now are filled with Muslim bias. This is happening all across the country.
Is it just bias, or is it also a whitewashed, politically correct version? For example, the definition of jihad is wrong.
Exactly. It's not only whitewashing history, it's also distorting what jihad and what other definitions like that really are. And the reason why is this. There is an organization called the Institute on Religious and Civic Values. They have an advisor. They are an academic advisor to this book. Now, you might say that seems like a fairly normal organization. Innocuous. They changed their name. They used to be known as the Council on Islamic Education.
Pretty amazing. Where's the ACLU? We're liberals that don't want any religion or the mention of Jesus or prayer in schools.
Cue the crickets. Look, you put baby Jesus in the school play, the ACLU is filing a lawsuit. You have teachers saying grace as they did it to one school in the Florida Panhandle. They're threatened with jail. But they haven't issued one statement about 36 pages of Islamic doctrine, Bible verses from the Quran in here. No Bible verses, but the Quran is in this public school textbook.
Do you think this outcry that started, do you think it will end in this being removed?
That could be. Just a few moments ago, a school board member called me from Brevard County. She's introducing this to the entire board. She has grave concerns about what she read in here. And we could see this book revised, rewritten, or possibly removed from the school system.
All right, great investigative work with legal. Todd Starnes, Fox News Radio. And when we come back.
Well, the book was not removed. There was a supplement added, but they would not remove the book. And the reason is these Muslim organizations have gotten to the publishers. There's big money involved. Okay, in the universities, and there's so much to tell you about what's going on here. The Saudis and the government of Qatar are funding major universities around the country, set up Middle Eastern studies departments, and fund the chairs of those departments with millions of dollars. And I'm talking Ivy League, Stanford, Duke, our local schools, okay? And so now they have Islamic studies departments happening. We actually have one in John Carroll. Go figure. Okay, student visas. 75,000 student visas were set up or given out last year. 15,000 of those students never made it to school. So where are they? NOC-MES means Northeast Ohio Consortium of Middle Eastern Studies Departments. They're at Case, Baldwin Wallace, John Carroll, Kent, Oberlin, and Cleveland State. This is from their website right here. These are all their community partners. Care. Oh boy. Right there. Community park. Libraries. Your tax dollars are paying for Islamic books going to 800 libraries around the country. Big history and other books going in there is part of this plan. All these components are part of this major plan. In the prisons, the Muslim chaplains are converting many prisoners. All the imams are all certified by the Islamic Society of North America. The military. Muslim Brotherhood instructors were teaching at the U.S. Naval Academy last summer and at the recruiting station at Lackland Air Force Base, which all of our Air Force cadets go through. Mandatory training. There's a mosque on the base. In Syria, our enemies are fighting, they're still fighting. Our enemies are fighting our enemies. It's pretty simple as that. We have Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah on one side. The Syrian rebels, Al-Qaeda, and the Muslim Brotherhood on the other. Sunnis versus Shia. Our position with African America is not to get dragged into this. But those advisors are trying to get us to go in and help the Muslim Brotherhood, or they call it the Free Syrian Army, okay, back in whatever that was, like in last September. As a result of the conflict in Syria and Egypt, we have Christian population decreasing quite rapidly over in the Muslim world. They're being slaughtered in Africa, and slaughtered, for lack of a better word, in Syria. In Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood was in power for a year. Morsi, with our backing, Mohammed Morsi was in power. Christians, non-Muslims were persecuted, and then the military stepped in. Even Muslims themselves wanted no part of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Benghazi. There is so much wrong here. We lost 4 dead Americans. We should never forget that. And we are pushing, our organization is working with Congressman Frank Wolf for House Resolution 36, which is calling for a select committee to get to the bottom, to get to the truth, so they can subpoena everybody and get to the truth about Benghazi. I'm not even going to make a statement. President Obama said the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. He said this at the United Nations 3 weeks after the attack. If you're following this case at all, the one thing that they're all realizing is that Susan Rice was in a talk show and repeated and lied. And they repeated the lie for 3 weeks, that this had nothing to do with that so-called video that they put the guy in prison for a year on. There was maybe a couple hundred people that saw that video. It goes much deeper than that. One of the reasons is our State Department has been working with the OIC, I mentioned them earlier, or the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, for another United Nations proposal, Resolution 1618, the defamation of religion. The Muslim world has been after this one forever, and we've always kind of scoffed, okay? They don't want any criticism of Islam. Well, up until about 2011, that was not going to be a problem, but then our State Department switched and started working with them, and Hillary met in Istanbul, Turkey, and for a 3-day meeting and a 3-part series that started of where they're going to try to implement this and put limits on our free speech. And it's all about the defamation of religion, and it's only one religion, Islam. The Cairo Declaration, the Islamic world's position on human rights, again, they are the largest voting bloc in the UN, was made clear in 1990 when representatives of Muslim nations met in Cairo as the organization of OIC and voiced their opposition to the UN Universal Declaration on Human Rights. In place of the UN Declaration, the OIC issued the Cairo Declaration. So this happened back in 1990, which asserted that the only human rights Muslims recognize are those permitted under Islamic Sharia. So they are actually killing each other in the Middle East, the Sunnis versus the Shia, and back and forth, trying to say that one is more pure than the other. And they're all fighting for Sharia law, but they're all trying to kill each other as the supreme leader of Sharia law. So here's what we're up against. We have the OIC. Oh. There we go. The OIC, political correctness, Al-Qaeda, physical jihad, and the Muslim Brotherhood are all coming after us at once. And you're being told about Al-Qaeda. That's it. So, one of the things our organization is responsible for is something called American Laws for American Courts. And it's a state law, because we can't get this passed at a federal level on this political climate. We have 8 states right now. So it's updated a little bit since this map. State law that says no foreign law can be used in the court system that would trump Article 6 of the Constitution. Can't do it. So that includes Sharia. The law is so well written that it doesn't specify Sharia, so it can't be singled out all as a bigoted law. And you would think that we shouldn't even have to do that our Constitution would just reign supreme. There has been 138 cases at the appellate level in the country so far where Sharia law was used to satisfy the judgment, okay, either by an activist judge or a lazy judge. They don't know what to do. There's 2 Muslims, and guess what? If it's a divorce case or anything, male, female, the woman pays a heavy toll. It's the judge calls in the local imam, who then says, well, you have to do it by Sharia. Then the judge defers to the imam, says, well, tell me what to do. Everything goes against the woman. So that's been used 138 times. We are working to introduce this bill in Ohio. Been working at this for a year. Matt Lynch is introducing this for us. It just launched yesterday. It's called House Bill 513. So we have to get it through the House. We have to get it through the Senate. And that's going to be for Ohio. There's other states working on this as well. Florida and Michigan were very close, and they got shot down. And it passed in Missouri. Both states, or both houses of government, state government in Missouri, only the governor vetoed it. And that just happened last September. So they're looking into him. Here's one of the ways it's defeated. Interfaith outreach. Imams are using uninformed pastors, priests, and rabbis to stop ALAC. What they do is they'll tell a priest or a pastor and say, you know, we've been building bridges with all of our interfaith dialogues. If your parishioners, your members of your church support this law, you're going to wreck all of our bridge building that we've been doing. You don't want to do that. It's a racist, bigoted law when it's not anything of that sort. The pastor, the rabbi, the priest, should turn around and look at that imam and say, listen, if you really were here to support the Constitution, you would say, we support that law. We want it. We're here, the Americans, to assimilate and support the Constitution. And that would change everything. But that's not what's happening. So the public needs to be educated. So that's what we're doing. Christians are increasingly being duped in the interfaith ties with the Islamists, especially with the Islamic Society of North America. If you go on their website and you look at their interfaith partners, you'll have 4 pages of different branches, different denominations, Christian, Jewish, who are partners. And the last one on the list, for all your Catholic friends, is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Cardinal Dolan goes to the local mosque in Washington, D.C., and meets with the head of the Islamic Society of North America there, and says, yes, we believe in the same God. He has no idea that he's talking to an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial. Now, quite frankly, if we all believe in the same God, then what difference does it make? Why don't we all just become Muslim tonight? We have training camps in our country, jihadist training camps. Our Houston chapter, Act for America, broke with the Clarion Project, one of the organizations that we work with, one of these training camps down in Texas, just within the last month. According to them, that's the Clarion Project, there are 35 training camps from this terrorism organization, they're not defined as terrorism, that's why they're allowed to operate here. And that comes to the State Department, having to classify them as a terrorist organization. They just won't do it. There's all these locations where they're at. Has anybody heard Claire Lopez speak? No, okay, just one, okay. Pastor Ernie, she's usually in the Cleveland area speaking. Friend of Bev, friend of mine now, and worked for the CIA, and she grew up on the west side of Cleveland. And Christian Action Network says there's 35 of these training camps. Clarion Project says anywhere between 25 and 35. Claire says there's more like 85. And I think her ears are closer to the ground. So what can you do? I'm asking you to join Act for America. It doesn't cost anything. You click on their website, like all these organizations that, for all these different issues that we all face, they ask for, donations. You can ignore that and go right to their main page. That's just a way for, some people are just willing to do that. Just give 20 bucks a month and they're supporting a good cause. I don't get paid by them. I volunteer my time, my travel, all of this, all my efforts, and I still give them money. So, join Act for America, push your federal legislators on H Resolution 36, okay, which is the Select Committee from Benghazi, and we have 187 co-sponsors on that now, okay? And the guy holding that up is John Boehner.
Oh,
so, this is not, Republicans are not innocent in any of this.
no, know that.
So, I was on a conference call with Michelle Bachman last May, and she's pleading for help. Basically pleading for help. It's got to come at the grassroots level. Met Louis Gohmert last year in Washington, D.C. If you could see in the video, I apologize for the condition of the video. It must have something to do with the projector, the coordination of it, but whatever. Louis Gohmert's a bald-headed congressman from Texas. He's excellent. He's on top of this. He was a former judge, and he is on top of this situation. He's a good guy. If you see him on Hannity or on TV, listen to him on the radio, just pay attention to what he's saying. Push your state legislators on ALAC, American Laws for American Courts. On our table over there, we have several handouts that I'm going to ask you. I can't stay all night, but I'm going to ask you when I'm done talking to go over there and take some and look through the literature. It's going to talk about ALAC. It's going to talk about the Holy Land Foundation trial. It's going to give you a series of websites that you can go to find all of this information. It's going to talk about the OIC and what's coming with this defamation of religion. They're trying to implement this by 2015. So this is coming. This is why all this language nonsense is happening. All right, so how can you do all that? You sign up for Act for America's emails. You go to their website, actforamerica.org. I have business cards over there with the website on it and all the main websites. This is very easy to do. Look for the sign-up link. And then email me at actcleveland@gmail.com. It's on the card as well, and I'll add you to my mailing list. And now, we have meetings in Parma and Brecksville. I don't expect you to come to Parma and Brecksville, but take my emails and share them. I only email once a week. I don't give anybody's personal information out. I do use a service called Constant Contact for simplicity's sake. And we are working on a number of projects, but American Laws for American Courts is our first major initiative. We're going to try to get that passed through the state. It may take another year, especially this being an election year. But now that you know what you know, that's one tool in our toolbox to fight this. Is it a silver bullet? No, not at all. Getting rid of Obama, is that a silver bullet? Nope, not at all. The Muslim Brotherhood is entrenched in this country. The agenda's in play. It's not only the Muslim Brotherhood who's supported by Qatar, it's the Saudis. The Iranians have an influence here as well. It is definitely, they're all after us, folks. It's that simple. Okay, so learn and share the information with your friends and family. Pay attention to when the kids come out in September. One thing I failed to mention about education. Not only are they slick enough to get to the publishers and get into the textbooks, but they have that Islam introduction or indoctrination started in the textbooks in the beginning of the school year, so it can't possibly be forgotten. It's always in the beginning of the school year. Push the state reps when it's time for ALAC, and as Pastor Ernie has found out, even though I live in Parma, I will go wherever I need to go. I've been to Port Clinton, Medina, Westlake, Brecksville, Parma, Geauga County twice, going to enter this Thursday, starting tomorrow, and explaining all this to everybody. So that's all I have.
Dan, mention this, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have a book. We don't charge anything except when we actually went to a printer and had something really nice made. It's called Getting Through, and it's there was a guy whose pen name was Citizen Warrior, in case of you followed any of this before. And he talks about this problem in great detail and how to talk to people about this whole problem, about Islam. Because right away when you mentioned Islam, I've seen it in my own family. People were shut down. They want, I'm not talking about religion. Well, we know that there's a big problem here. This is not just another innocent religion we're dealing with. So, we sell these for $5. It's well worth the investment. And we're going to be here for probably another 15, 20 minutes or so, and I have another family thing I have to get to tonight. So I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
He has a lot of information. I suggest, folks, that you really, get some of that. Those books that he's talking about are very, very good.
I already have that.
This threat is
Already have
real.
this?
It's not
I have-
something that's
no, I
coming
have
here.
this.
It's here.
Yes. So take
And
this,
we have
this,
to
and
deal
this,
with
and
it.
if
We
you have
have to deal
extra,
with
it's
it.
fine, you give it out to someone else.
Okay.
The next speaker.
Great. Sure, it's fine.